Hi everyone. In this presentation, which will consist of a couple of parts, I would like to talk about the QRH concept of the Dash 8 Q400. My name is Mohammed Adam. I'm a captain on this aircraft, and I've made a couple of other videos as well, which you might have seen uh, based on what we normally do in our flight operations, and giving you some basic tips that I have learned through the little experience I've been getting, and I intend to make further videos just to share my knowledge with you. So what you see on the screen here is the preface page of the QRH, and I'm not going to go through everything here, but I just want us to focus on a very important parts, couple of important parts that I'd like us to know and understand. So on the preface page, what we see here, you can read all this here, but it's very important to note these highlighted areas that I've just put here right now. And if you see what it says here, it says that in the event of an inconsistency between any checklist and the approved AFM, the AFM takes precedence. So AFM is where everything is coming from, which I'm pretty sure all of you who are on this fleet, or any fleet in that for that matter, you may have these airplane flight manuals, they call them. Very important is this paragraph here, which says pilots must be aware that checklists cannot be created for all conceivable situations and are not intended to preclude good judgment, meaning that over time and experience that we get in flying, we need to be able to make sound judgments of any failures that we may get, which are outside the published checklists. In some cases, at the discretion of the PIC, deviation from the checklist may be necessary under all circumstances. The first priority is to maintain safety of the airplane for the duration of the flight. So safety is the main message here that you guys, all of you aviators, should keep you religiously whenever you are flying an aircraft, and there is no compromise to safety. Safety always comes first, and then the rest of the stuff like economy, passengers, scheduling, standardization of operations comes last, but safety comes first. So if you think that this aircraft is not airworthy, you don't go, you don't fly. Intentionally, you don't do that. Otherwise, you may end up in a disastrous situation. If not, some consequences may fall upon you from authorities if they should find out that you have taken flight of an aircraft which was not bound to fly. So remember these words, please. Just be safe all the time. Okay, so I'm not going to go through all this. This is just something that you can read, but there is one part here that I'd like us to look at, is this part here on the non-normal emergency checklists. So what things can we learn from here? All this is a bit of reading material that you need to read anyway, but if I go through all that, it will just waste my time, or our time rather, in as far as we want to cover each section of the QRH, all the emergency sections in detail in the subsequent parts. So in this part here, I have combined the introduction and air conditioning, and in the subsequent part, we're going to follow the order in the QRH that you'll be getting. So here, we'd like to emphasize on these statements here. If you see that in many pages, a couple of pages in the emergency sections, you may come across this phrase which says land immediately at the nearest suitable airport. Okay, that's very important. And if you see what it says here, the nearest suitable airport is one that offers sufficient landing distance available, and it's, if required, emergency service available to support the emergency or abnormality. Okay, at the nearest. So that's very important, and the immediately part is very important, because immediately here, immediately means that if you have departed, then you have to come back and land at that particular, because that's exactly the nearest airport you have. If you've departed from an airport, okay, you've just taken off and you face an emergency which dictates you to land immediately, means that you have to come back. Okay, that's as easy and as simple to understand as it is. Then here it says land at the nearest suitable airport. Can you see the difference there? Here it says immediately, the first one is immediately, but here at the nearest. So at the nearest mean that you can come back, you can consider coming back from where you departed, or you can continue, okay, where maintenance service are available. So the airplane may continue, it says that the airplane may continue to destination airport or the nearest airport where maintenance service are available. If you have a technician on board, not a problem. I mean, you've got maintenance personnel with you on board as well, or you've got to find out. So how we do this is that if we face an emergency, or like an urgency or a situation, non-normal situation, where the QRH says land at the nearest suitable airport, it's very good to contact your operations and ask them, do we have maintenance at the destination? Or if we have a technician on board, like in our operations, then it's not a problem at all. We know that we can definitely proceed, and the technician can work on the fault or the situation when we land at the destination. Okay, so very important, immediately and at the nearest suitable. These are this is more priority, because you need to actually get down and land. This one, yes, you can think of proceeding as long as this criteria is met. Okay, then we have the other statement which you will come across, which says maintenance action is required prior to next flight. This one here, okay, very important. Maintenance action, what does this mean? People do get confused. Prior to next flight, as it says here, maintenance action is referring to procedures which can be conducted by appropriately trained and approved pilots as well as maintenance personnel. Okay, and next flight, this one here, some people argue that no, you can go if you, let's say you find the fault while you're taxiing, okay, or while you are on the ground. And some people argue saying next flight will be you can depart, but you have to fix it when you are coming out of the outstation. That is wrong. Next flight means that the moment you discover the fault, here it says the moment you discover the fault and there is a takeoff which is imminent, okay, immediate imminent, that takeoff should not happen. So before you take off, you've got to fix that fault. That's what next flight means. So for example, let's say you have there is one very nice example I'll give you in the engine and APU and propeller section, where you have no starter cutout. In the no starter cutout section, you will come across maintenance action required prior to next flight in one of the items in the list. Okay, so the moment you discover that fault, that is when you say no, we're not going to take off. We are going to take off when this fault has been fixed, because next flight is referring to the immediate or imminent takeoff after. Here it is after discovery. Everything is very clearly stated in this QRH, so there's no need to argue anything. Okay, so these are the couple of things basically that I wanted us to focus on in this part. Okay, the rest of the whole sections are just about reading, so make sure you've read the preface and every single bit of the introduction before you now start dealing with reading the QRH's emergency sections that we are going to be covering in separate parts. Each one will be covered, and I'll tell you my thoughts from my training and experience that I've been getting and my literature on what I understand from those items and how they have been presented and stated. Okay, so let's move on now and let's talk about the air conditioning section now. So we're going to combine this section with air conditioning, and then the subsequent parts will be covering each chapter until we will be done with all the systems in as far as the relevant QRH is concerned. Okay, one very important thing I'd like to say is that QRH, AOM and MEL, these are like a chain. You got to have all three of them in your mind, like as in how they are presented and what content they have. You've got to read all of them. You read the AOM for the systems. For each system you go on the QRH to see its emergencies, which are associated emergencies, and also the MEL, you just have to like browse through and to see which faults are go and which faults are no go. Remember, if an item is not in the MEL, it means it is a no go. No go. Okay, if it's not in the MEL, it means you cannot depart until that item has been sorted. Okay, that's very important. So now I'm going to go and start the air conditioning section. We're going to talk bit by bit in terms of all the things and how we deal when we get those failures coming to us, if they have to come to us. Especially in simulators, we are always given these things, but nonetheless, we also experiencing many in real life. I have had many experiences as well. So let's go to the air conditioning section now. Okay, so here's the air conditioning section of the QRH that we want to go through. So any items which are boxed like these, you guys who are mostly in any aircraft, I think, items which are boxed are known as memory items. So these items in here, whenever they are there, you've got to commit them to memory. So we have to understand that. So we're going to talk of all these items as we go along, just to understand what they are and what they mean and how we deal with them when we get certain when we get those type of faults, if we ever get them. So here what I'm browsing through basically is just the schematic of the air conditioning system, which you can get from the AOM, but then we start from here. So the very first one is rapid depressurization emergency descent. So here are the memory items. Whenever you note that you have a depressurization, when you look at your gauges overhead and you know the cabin altitude is shooting beyond 8,000 feet at 25,000 and going to above 14,000, you know something is wrong, and obviously you'll be getting an indication with a buzzer, okay, and the warning light will come on, master warning light will come on, and also the cabin pressure warning light will come on, which comes on when the cabin altitude increases above 9,800 feet as per the AOM. So these are your memory items that you have to do methodically, systematically, and no rushing. Okay, and then this is just about reading. So what I'll do, if there's anything that I've got to emphasize on reading, I will read that, but otherwise it's just a very basic. Okay, here's an unpressurized flight, bleeds on. When checklist item, QRH item dictates that you've got to go unpressurized, then you go to this one here and you just do these three items. Nothing big there. Here there isn't anything else. Ram ventilation means that the ventilation inside the aircraft is not now coming from the bleed air system of the engines, from the engines rather, because you've shut it down or it's been shut down. So ram ventilation basically just like a ramming like a slang word for hitting. So it's just the airflow from the outside which goes into the NACA vents on the dorsal fin, and then they enter the aircraft's cabin, which go to the airflow goes to the packs, and then it's conditioned in the normal manner to be delivered to the cabin and the flight compartment. Okay, and to do a ram ventilation flight, basically you must understand that it's only effective at above 150 knots. So you have to see your indicated airspeed. If it's above 150 knots, means you can obviously expect that ram ventilation will work very well. So these are the items here, and recirculation fan should go off. So you go recirc fan off, bleed air 1 and 2 min and off. So you go to min and off. Auto man dump, man diff, increase 50 seconds. The manual differential is a little switch on the cabin pressure control panel section, where you increase it and time for 50 seconds. There's a knob as well which you are familiar with. Fully clockwise has to be opened, and then the full outflow valve is guarded, which is open. So you lift the guard and you open it. This is on the first officer's side, so nothing to talk about there. Here we are, cabin pressure warning light. This is normally what we can be very much concerned with when we get it. In the simulator they will always give it to you, and in real life people have actually experienced it as well. Fortunately until now I haven't experienced it, and I don't think I want to, but if it comes, it's a process that you follow. So let's look at what happens here, because what people do, they rush things to start descending. All right, this is where the problem is. So what you can see here, it says cabin pressure warning light comes on the CAUP, caution warning panel, or cabin pressurization failure, or you see it's or here, meaning it's either this or that. So the first thing you have to notice, if this is the case, you have to look at the pressurization gauges. Okay, so if you can see that, okay, the cabin altitude has shot up, okay, the differential is 0, so it tells you that okay, I've lost pressurization. And then you'll have and or, you see and or here, very important. These things are very important, you've got to read them very carefully. And or, so it can be loss of a cabin pressure control and pressurization controller fault. Okay, sorry, loss of cabin pressure control and pressurization controller, meaning the fault light will be enunciated. Or it can be loss of cabin pressure control or pressurization controller fault. So it's either both of them or one of them. When that happens, the first thing that you, let's say if you're first officer or the captain from the left right, see, the first thing you experience here, you have to put your oxygen mask on, because you don't know what actually has happened anyway. So first of all, don the oxygen mask, okay, to prepare yourself for the worst, meaning descent. Then before you declare emergency descent, check on the air conditioning panel. Your bleeds, are they on and on? Yes, they are. Are the cabin pack and flight command packs auto? Yes, they are. Auto man dump? Yes, it is at auto. What about the cabin altitude flow, forward outflow? It's completely counterclockwise, means closed. Then forward outflow knob on the first officer side, it's normal. So when all these things are satisfied, okay, then you look at the cabin altitude. Has it exceeded 8,000 feet? Or maybe yes, it has. So let's try and put the bleed selector to max. Okay, put it to max. Now you've done all these things. You see, you haven't even thought of descending, but you've done all these things. You've checked everything here looks the way it should be. Then the question, the QRH is asking you, is the pressurization regained? Yes, it has. If it is, okay, no problem. We monitor the differential cabin altitude and rate, and you end. What people have done, actually what I have mostly done is also, when in the initial stages, the moment you have this boom, boom, boom cabin pressure warning light coming on, you may don the oxygen mask, you put your power levers down, condition levers max, start descending. You don't have to do that, okay? You got to assess the situation. So, yes, we are okay. Now, if all this has been satisfied, all this is okay, but still the cabin pressurization is not under control, meaning the cabin altitude is still high, then now you do the next action. So you go to your auto man dump, put it to manual, take the man diff little switch there, and then you increase or decrease it. The rule I use here, I personally like using this rule. If the cabin altitude is increasing, you put the switch to increase. If the cabin altitude is decreasing, you put the switch to decrease. Can you see that? Why do you do that? If the cabin altitude is increasing, okay, you want to decrease the cabin altitude, you'll have to put the switch to increase. When you put it to increase, you are going to increase what? The cabin pressure. So cabin pressure and cabin altitude are inversely proportional. So when one thing goes up, the other one goes down. So what I'm saying again is that you look at the cabin altitude gauge. If it's increasing, put the switch to increase and hold it there. You will see the cabin altitude will start going down. If the cabin altitude is going down, put it to decrease. Just follow the direction, okay? And then you'll see that the cabin altitude will go up. So that's very important, because cabin altitude and cabin pressure are inversely proportional. If you have any questions, you can definitely comment and I'll explain to you further, but this is the simplest I can do. And here it does say about the function of the increase decrease switch in terms of pressure, okay? Now once you've done that, all right, are you able to control the pressure? Okay, yes, you have controlled it. So you can see, okay, I am able to control the pressurization. So what you do, you look at your card on the overhead panel there next to the gauges, the rate gauge, the differential gauge, and the cabin altitude gauge, and then you match the elevation you are, the pressure level you're at, the flight level you're at, to the cabin altitude that the aircraft should be at, okay, by using this increase and decrease technique, okay. And then prior to landing, just switch off the bleeds and put the selector to min. So you can still fly the aircraft nicely. You can control the pressurization, you can breathe normally once you've done that. But after doing this step, again you say, I am not able to control the pressure. Now it's a time to say we have to go down. and then you have to now do your procedures as per your company SOP, okay, to go down. And then once you have descended to 14,000 feet, then you go to the unpressurized flight checklist, which we just saw earlier on above. Okay, so that's how you interpret all this. Okay, you don't rush, just say, let's just go down quickly. No, think about it. What are you doing? What is the situation? And okay, and then you take it step by step. Then you do the worst that you don't want to do, okay, which is going down, obviously, to keep it safe. Okay, so then we come to this part here now. I hope that one made sense. There are a couple of those even in engine section, which I'll explain as we go along. So here you look at your rate, your rate, your altitude, and your differential indication, and you just realize, oh, I've lost all of them. What do I do? Okay, so basically, when you've lost all of them, the whole idea here is that something is wrong. So here it clearly says descend below 14,000 feet as soon as possible. As soon as possible. It's saying here as soon as possible. Okay, once you've done that, you've initiated your descent, and then your first officer will obviously do all these actions here. And again, you're going to be under an unpressurized flight, so you're going to go and do this checklist. Okay, very easy, but very important that you descend. Here it says descend as soon as possible. Now you are coming on an approach, and then you glance at your differential indicator and it's above 1 psi on approach. Okay, fine, you're going to call for the checklist, and then see, these are memory items, by the way, so you have to call for the checklist. Cabin differential 1 psi on approach. Then what you're going to do, you're going to do these actions here and just follow what the checklist says. As simple as that. Okay, crack windshield. You're flying and you just hear boom, okay, or a crack because of an arcing problem or anything that has caused the crack. What do? You reduce the speed, obviously, so you don't get a lot of airflow hitting the windscreen, so it doesn't squash inwards and do further damage. Okay, so what you have to do here is that you've got to manually control the differential pressure, because now, very important, I want to tell you here is that the cabin pressure, the difference between the cabin pressure and atmospheric pressure is differential pressure. Okay, this is very important. If I can actually write this here and then you can make a note of it, it's going to be very important. So the differential, sorry, this is not ideal writing tools that I have here, but the differential, I'll just try my best to write differential pressure is equal to the cabin pressure. Remember this cabin pressure because it will come somewhere. I'll have to discuss with you on one of the parts of the AOM why the setting of the landing elevation matters, whether you land pressurized or unpressurized. I'll explain to you that later on. So it equals cabin pressure minus the atmospheric pressure. Please make a note of this one. This is the way cabin pressure is. Okay, so it's a difference between the inside pressure and the outside pressure. So what you are doing here, if you are decreasing the differential, okay, to keep it between 2.5 and 3 maximum, you're effectively trying to reduce the cabin pressure, so you don't you don't have a lot of pressure inside to blow the windscreen outwards. That's the whole point. Okay, that's why you want to keep the pressure to be at a smaller value. Okay, it's very important, you better understand that, and please make a note of this one as we go along. It's going to be very helpful for your understanding of pressures. Okay, that's about it. So if I can just get this out. So I hope it makes sense why we decrease the pressure. Again, I'll just say it, we're decreasing the differential so that you decrease the cabin pressure inside, so that it does not or you're trying to equalize in a sense so that it doesn't blow out the windscreen. Okay, that's the whole purpose of decreasing the differential. Okay, now if you see these type of items which are inverted commas, these are very simple. You know why? Because these are caution lights. Can you see most of these we went here, like crack windshield, this one, that one. Can you see all these? Besides this one here, they don't have inverted commas. Okay, this one does have because there's a warning light. But the moment you have a caution light, just call for that checklist. So for example, you look at your caution warning panel and you see number 1 bleed hot and number 2 bleed hot caution lights. When you see both of them, something's not all right. So you call for that checklist. Okay, behind your mind, you know that, okay, something's going to go wrong. I've got to descend. And here it is. All this has been stated what you have to do. Very simple. Sometimes you have number one bleed out, or can you see the difference here? It's and here, meaning these two is more serious. This one is just one of them. So if it's one of them, it's not a serious thing. Just switch off the affected side, like what it says here. Okay, and monitor the situation. What happened? That's about it. We've experienced people in training. I've sometimes gone through the same sort of phases where, oh, I just see one of these caution lights and I'm just, oh, let's just go down or let's descend. Sometimes that's not very necessary, but this only comes the more you read and you start to understand actually what the literature says. Okay, now we go to this one here. It says bleed system failure on takeoff. Okay, so here what's going to happen, you've rotated, you are going climbing out just before 400 feet. Ding ding. Okay, number one bleed out and number two bleed out caution comes on. Okay, what you're going to do, the first thing you'll do, it's better to stop climb at MSA. That's the first thing you'll do. You don't want to just keep climbing, so you can deal with the situation. So you stop climb at above MSA or at MSA, all right, and then you see, okay, am I above 100 feet? Yes, I am. So let me put the bleed air 1 and 2 to on and min, which you will do obviously, which is part of the after takeoff checklist. Okay, then you time after 10 seconds, you put the min off. When you do these actions, the checklist is asking you something here. Caution lights persist, yes or no? If it's yes, then you go to the number one bleed hot and number two bleed hot caution light checklist, which is just this one here. And it tells you if you are above 14,000, descend. If you are not above 14,000, you just come in and land. As simple as that. Okay. If the caution does not persist, no. Okay. So then you can reset your bleed switches and off you go. You continue the flight, seek maintenance action, and see what they tell you. Contact them on your frequency. Okay, or contact technician. Okay, so basically that's how we interpret these checklists. See, the guys, what I'm trying to do here is that I'm trying to make you appreciate how to go about reading these checklists, because if you rush, we all do that initially, we all get panic attacks, we all, when it comes to training, we all go into these messes that we shouldn't do. So my job right now is just to prepare your mind how slowly, in a calm manner, collective manner, we can go through each item whenever it's we are faced with such items, okay, or such failures. Proceeding here, again here we've got an and an or situation. Cabin pack hot and flight compartment pack hot. Okay, if both of them are there, okay, the checklist is telling you to descend. One more thing I want to tell you. When you have, let's say, these two ands, these two coming on takeoff roll before V1, let's say cabin pack hot and flight command pack hot, or bleed hot and bleed hot, these two, when they come before V1, would you reject? Of course, because there are two caution lights there. And why do you have to proceed with a takeoff if you know that something's going to go wrong? You can reject, that's the first decision, or you can go in the air until MSA, because you know that if anything, I've got to below 14,000 feet for this fault to be verified. You can take off, go above MSA, or go to MSA rather, and go for these checklists. Do what they tell you to do. And if these lights go off, all good and well. What you will do, you'll continue and seek maintenance advice. Okay. If not, some people would say, no, I don't want to take off, I'll reject. Okay, because I don't know what is the problem. Some people will say, okay, let's go to MSA and then solve situation there. Okay, normally it's good to take off if you can, okay, and solve the situation above MSA or around MSA, means maximum safe altitude, all right, and then come back and land if you think you have to. All right, coming back here, cabin pack hot and flight compartment duct hot, or flight compartment pack hot and cabin duct hot. This is quite a bit here. Again, it tells you do what you think you should do, what you have to do here rather. That's what you have to do here, is again a descending thing. Okay, if you are above 14,000, you have to descend. If it comes below 14,000, stop climb, do the procedures and see what's the next course of action. Okay, here's an or, so only one of these. It's either this or that. Do these actions. That's it. Monitor and see what's the way forward. Okay, another or is here. Very simple. Do these actions, see and monitor what's happening. Okay, and then it becomes very simple now. If you have a let's say a fuselage doors warning light, okay, you do the actions. Okay, again, as I've told you, do each action before you think of the worst of descending. Do each action and then go to the questionnaire that the QRH is asking you. Pressurization is normal. Yes, here it is. It says here, land at the nearest suitable airport. If you remember from my introduction, I explained to you what this is. You can go back to that one. If you have the QRH with you, the hard copy, you can even check what it means. So here it says, land at the nearest suitable airport. Means you can continue, but you need maintenance action at the destination. Okay. If the pressure is not normal, now all this is in bold. Loss of pressurization or operating unpressurized and security of affected door cannot be confirmed, or operating handle of affected door is not in closed position. Here, can you see what it says here? Land immediately at the nearest suitable airport. So this is another one which I was telling you in the preface. Immediately. So here you've got to find the nearest suitable airport, go in and land after you've descended. All right. Or if you've just taken off, you are close to your departure, go and land at your departure base. Okay, this is not that serious. This is just nothing actually. It does come, yes, but I mean it's just about the internal doors, so you just have to look at the security. Okay, and all this here isn't that hectic as the ones I've actually just discussed about in this section, and all you have to do is just read. But my whole point again is for you to understand how to read the QRH. Okay, it's very important that you understand how to read the QRH and how to action things, not in a rushed manner, but in a systematic, calm, and collective manner. Okay, so you can deal with each item clearly.